So in this video, I'm going to talk about how to make a full print cover, which includes the spine and the back that you're going to upload to make a print version of your book. The covers that I was talking about so far are just the front cover JPEG, which is okay for the ebook. If you want to use a print-on-demand service so that they will print and ship a book for you, then you'll also need to get your book prepared for print. And what a lot of authors don't realize is that before you start on a full print cover, you actually need to finish the book formatting. Formatting for print is a different issue. It's usually done in Microsoft Word or Adobe InDesign, which is a little bit cleaner, but there's a steeper learning curve. I'm not going to go into formatting in this video, except to say that your chapter heading font should match the title font that you've chosen for your book cover. And there's a lot of little things that go into making a format professional. So even if you're doing it yourself, I'd recommend learning how to do it right. I do have a sister site, which is DIY Book Formats, where you can download a bunch of free book formatting templates and tutorials. And there's also a few dozen very professionally designed book formatting templates in the master package of templates on this website. So if you need some help with your formatting and you also want more choices and options with your book cover design templates, then you could upgrade to that master package and you'll get a lot more options. Once you've finished formatting your book for print, you should have a PDF. I'm going to show you an example of one of the novels that I've published not too long ago. Down here at the bottom, I can see how many pages it has. You want to be careful to look at the actual page number and not just what it says, because depending on how you number your pages, it might show a little bit differently. I'll have a copyright page, fancy titles only for the chapter headings. I'm just using chapter 1, chapter 2, it's pretty simple. And then a clean serif font. Almost always you want a serif font for the body font. When I was doing the formatting, I also chose the page size. So if I go up here to File and Document Properties, it'll show me that this is 5.25 by 8 inches, which is the size that I like. All of the templates that I've made come in a default size of 6 by 9, which is a very common, perfectly okay book cover size. But if you want to change the size for a specific print, I can just go here to Layout and Size, More Paper Sizes, and then I'll just change this. And when this happens, things might shift around a little bit, but it should do a pretty good job of kind of cropping the main image. So I can just kind of rearrange or resize a little bit to fit the new size. And so all we basically need to do is duplicate the size, whatever it is, of the front cover and make a back cover as well, but then also calculate for the spine width, which is why it's really important to finish the formatting first. Otherwise, you're always going to have to redo the page count and redo the spine width and the whole cover. It's better to get the formatting finished. If you have, it's always the case that you'll have some typos in later versions of the book, but if it's just a few little typos, it's not going to really affect the page count. It's more basic overall style things like line height or font size you want to really decide and get right before you commit to doing the full print cover. So it is possible to make a full print cover in Microsoft Word, and there's a guide in the Quick Start free package which will kind of walk you through it. It's a little bit outdated because it mentions CreateSpace. CreateSpace has moved everything into KDP Publishing. So in KDP, you'll see something like this, which is create a new title, Kindle, ebook, or paperback. If you make an ebook, it will prompt you to also make a paperback. So these, for example, I think I already have paperbacks, but they're older on CreateSpace, so they weren't linked automatically. So it asks me link an existing paperback, which I could do, or create a new paperback. They actually have a cover designer tool. So it will ask me for the paperback details, and I could fill all of this stuff out. A lot of it is automatically propagated from the ebook, which I'd already set up. It will offer to give me a free ISBN or use my own ISBN. You could buy your own from Bowker, for example, or other places that sell Personally, I think the free KDP ISBN is fine for print on demand. If you do your research, a lot of people will tell you it's better to publish with Ingram Spark or Lightning Source because it's more of the old school traditional model where you can set the right settings to make it possible for bookstores to order your book directly. In my experience, that's not worth the time and effort to set it up on Ingram Spark because just because it's available doesn't mean bookstores are actually going to buy it. If your book was very successful and they wanted it, people could actually buy it through KDP's expanded distribution anyway. So you'll hear some conflicting advice. If you want to publish on Ingram Spark, then you will need to get your own ISBN because they won't accept the one that comes from Amazon. And something else that's interesting and a little bit different is no matter where you get your ISBN from, you can upload a full print cover to KDP and they will print a barcode on it if you leave space on the bottom right hand corner of your the back cover. And like I said, it's perfectly fine for print on demand, which is where most of your sales are going to be. And I would always focus on actual online ebook sales instead of print event bookstore sales anyway, because those are not scalable. They're limited. You have to do a lot of work and effort to sell each copy, whereas online sales you can scale with advertising without actually physically selling each copy of the book. But the free ISBN barcode that KDP will give you on the book cover won't have a price embedded, and a lot of bookstores will require that the price is embedded in the barcode. There are some free online book cover barcode generators that allow you to put the price in it. I have one on my site, Creative Indie Covers. As I said, I don't think it's necessary to do it that way. I think it's fine to just upload and use the free ISBN because I don't really focus on paperback sales. But that's your personal choice. Down here under print options, you'll choose your print size. So the one that I was working on a minute ago, I just showed you, was 5.25 by 8. And that's just the base default size without the spine width calculation yet. The only other important thing really is whether you're choosing cream paper or white paper, because the width of the paper is a little bit different, so it will affect the spine width. So if a designer or if you formatted your paperback cover for one or the other and then you choose the wrong option, it may not fit properly. So then down here you can upload your paperback manuscripts. This would be the formatted PDF that's already been designed and edited. And then finally you can upload your book cover. So you could either use their cover creator, which isn't actually a great design tool, but it may be simple enough, like compared with making a full print cover in Microsoft Word, which can be done but isn't necessarily the easiest thing in the world. You may, if you get stuck with Microsoft Word, try out the cover creator. It's probably fine for a very simple spine and back if you already have the front cover. You can't really do anything fancy and it's pretty limited, but it may work just to kind of finalize a few things. I'll show you how that's going to work in a minute, but first I'm going to look at this one, which is upload a cover you already have. So here you would upload a print ready PDF file that's already calculated the spine width and the back and everything. And then you can see, you can check if you added your barcode already, or don't check if you just want them to put a barcode for you. So if we want to make our own cover, you'd have to calculate the size depending on the page number. So basically this is the calculation that you would use. You just multiply the number of pages by these numbers depending on whether you're doing for white paper or cream paper. KDP does have a tool for calculating it. You can see up here kdpamazon.com/enusa/cover templates. So here I could just select the page size that I want and add a page count. I think that book I was working on was 276, and I prefer cream almost always, especially for fiction. Some technical specific nonfiction books look okay in white. White pages is a little bit easier on the eye, so if it's more dense, complex information, then the white may be better. I think cream looks a little nicer. It's a better reading experience, mostly for fiction. So all I have to do here is download this cover template and save it on my computer. But I'm going to show you one thing, which is that already you can see they automatically round up or down to the closest round number. I think they go in integers, intervals of 8 or something. So they went from 276 to 280, which is an extra 4 pages. It may not make a huge difference, but they are also really precise. So you need to have your text, for example, only in the white space on the spine. 276 pages gives us quite a bit of room to work with. If you have a book that's less than 100 pages, it's going to be really tricky to fit any significant spine width or spine text. Sometimes you have to do away, if it's like a shorter pamphlet, you may not be able to add spine text at all. I think generally if it's within about 5 pages as a margin, that's probably going to look okay, but they may give you some error notifications. You would actually look, I've had clients tell me like, you know, the edges of the spine don't perfectly match up with the fold of the pages. If you look at any bookstore and go through all the books, you're going to find that's actually pretty common. It's just when you order your own book, you're going to over inspect it and expect everything to be completely perfect. So all we would really need to do is add up the size of this template. So you can see it's 5.25 by 8 times 2 because there's the back, and then the spine width is 0.7. So if I just did 5.25 times 2, which is 10.5 plus 0.7, it's 11.2. Then I could go down here into width and just go 11.2. Which now gives me something like this. I would have to move everything over to get it in the front where I want it. And depending on what you're doing, usually for a book cover, I would just try to find a little bit of the art to use as the background. So for example, if I could take this girl out of the picture and just use this background and put it here, probably darkening it a little bit. Something I think you can do in Microsoft Word is corrections. And I could just choose like a brightness contrast and just make it a lot darker. So I wouldn't necessarily use this picture because I don't want the girl replicated. Sometimes you can just find, like if I found a flat image of a wallpaper that was similar, or some texture, something kind of gritty, depending on the genre. But I also think it's fine just to add a flat color. So for example, I could go to shapes and just pick a rectangle and then fill this in with black and fill the space. So then I just have a black background and a black spine. To make sure that this is right on, I would just take that template, and they've probably sent me a PDF version and a PNG version. I can't put the PDF version in Microsoft Word, but I can put the PNG version. So then I would just have to go to the text wrap so I can put it and position it where I want to. And if I pull it out full width, it should fill the space just about perfectly. Once I have it in here, I can actually go to transparency and just set the transparency. That will allow me to kind of see behind it and see what's going on. It's a little tricky with Word to juggle files. Like I don't think I can grab the one that's behind it unless I move this layer. So I might need to just kind of see where things are and then move things out of the way a little bit. I can see that, for example, this black background layer is like halfway through my spine. So I could probably just decide to move this over and fill the space. And then while I still have these guidelines, I'd probably really quickly duplicate the title layer and maybe the author name and just rotate it 90 degrees to fit on the spine. So this I'm going to have to make a smaller size. But anyway, looks kind of like that. I would do the same thing with the author name and just put that over here. And then I would have a flat text field for the back cover. So I could even just grab this one. And I would have to fix, like there's a lot of spacing in here and this is set to all caps, so I would have to fix a lot of it. And I'd probably want to pull in the edges a little bit away from the margins or to look too crowded. There's also a weird thing, especially with Amazon books, where there's the spine line, which is here, but they will also kind of have another line about here, which is just when they kind of smash all the pages together to get them to stick with the glue. So you might have a little like indentation line a little further out, which can look a little weird on the text. So if you can bring in the text a little bit, depending on the size. What you put on the back cover, I'm not actually going to go into on this video, but getting the blurb right and using the keywords that you need to communicate the benefits of your book, that's all really important stuff. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next video, which is about publishing. It's also a little different, like for a print book, you're assuming that they like the cover enough to pick up and they're reading the back. So it's pretty important, but for online sales, the text you put in the blurb is really important also for visibility and SEO, which just means when people are searching for keywords, not only does the blurb have to convince them to read the book, but it also has to show up when they're searching for things, which is really, really important. Once I've got things kind of pretty much in the right place, I could just go ahead and delete that guidelines layer, and I could keep editing this as long as I don't move it around, because I know that I've already put it in the right place according to that guide. So that's how you would do it in Microsoft Word. I will point out a few other resources I like a lot. So one is bookhow.com. They have a CreateSpace KDP cover generator. And the difference basically is it doesn't round up. So this one would actually give you an exact page count as opposed to that rounded up one that we got, which is weird that you need to use a third party. KDP really should just have a better tool, but they don't. They also let you have an optional barcode with an optional price. I forget, I don't think I've used this in a while, so I'm not sure if it works or not, but like I said earlier about if you want to get a barcode that has a price embedded because you want it to get booked by independent bookstores or whatever, that might be a better option than trying to put in the barcode on your own. But I also wanted to take a look at this cover creator. It's been a while since I used it. I don't think, like I said, it's a great tool, but if you find it easier to use and it helps you to get the job done, then that's great. They actually used to have really terrible book design. They still, like, their examples are really terrible. They used to offer book cover design, KDP did, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and they've stopped offering it, mostly because it's too competitive and probably too much work to deal with authors. Designing for authors can be a pain because most authors don't really know what is good book cover design anyway, so they want a bunch of unrealistic requests or changes. It is difficult because there's so much demand and so many authors who are willing to pay for quality book cover design, but most designers find working with authors challenging because authors don't really know what they're doing, but they're also calling the shots. So anyway, if I go in here, I could select images, I could select my covers. Apparently they have an image gallery, so I could just look for random images. I probably would avoid this. These don't look like great quality images anyway. I'm not sure where they're getting these images from, probably from like the free images or free photo databases. But I'm going to go into here. So you can see they've already populated, based on the cover that I was designing, they've already populated the title and the author name. I can add a subtitle, and then I can get in here and just start editing. So I would have to change the background image completely, and all of this background text, which is kind of too small and a little bit rough. And also there's just not a lot of choices. These are standard kind of Google fonts. I wouldn't necessarily use any of these with the exception of Cinzel Decorative is a great font for fantasy, so that might be okay. and I think they have at least one or two potential sci-fi fonts, Arbitron. And like I said earlier, if it's just a simple like non-fiction book or something, some of these fonts may be fine if it's a simple serif or sans serif font. Even Anton is not terrible for certain uses. I would keep the back cover text really simple with just a random serif font. So anyway, this is an option that you might find easier because they should have already calculated the spine width and put the text on and stuff. It's not super pretty, but they also allow you to use with a front cover image. So I could just upload my front cover only and then just customize the back and the spine really quickly with a flat, basically one color background, like a totally black background like I was doing in Microsoft Word. That won't look too bad depending, and that might just be a simpler solution. One comment though, if I can zoom in a little bit. So weirdly, it's not letting me zoom in, but what you can see here is that there's this extra margin around the edges with the red line. So there's a margin around the top and the right hand side and the bottom, but not on the left hand side because that attaches to the spine. So it's just something to keep in mind. It probably won't make a huge difference, but depending on how you've laid out the text on your front cover, when you upload your front cover here, some of the right side is going to get trimmed away, which will make your text a little bit off center. So the text will look a little bit like it's closer to the right hand side. It's not a huge deal. You do have to make sure there's enough space because if your text is too close to the edges and then you upload your cover, some of it will be trimmed off. So for the paperback version, you want to have more space around the outside edges if you can, and bring all of the text in and to the left a little bit, just to make sure that it keeps things center if you use a program like this, or even if you do it in Microsoft Word, you'll probably need to do this a little bit. So I hope this video answers some questions. As I mentioned earlier, it can be a little bit tricky to finish a full print cover. You do need to get the formatting right. I haven't really talked about the editing. Maybe I'll go into that a little bit in the next video. Basically, I don't think getting the print paperback, I mean, it makes a difference if you're sending paperback copies to potential reviewers, or even if you're giving them out or at events or whatever, then the quality of the paperback does matter. But the thing that really matters the most for long-term sales is going to be the ebook cover, how it looks on Amazon, whether or not it attracts the right audience. So maybe don't be too frustrated if you can't get the full wraparound spine and back to be exactly what you want, as long as the front cover looks really good. And if this gets a little bit too frustrating, you can also find someone on Fiverr.com to finish the paperback for you, probably for around $50, but definitely less than $100. If you decide that you're wasting time doing this kind of thing and you'd rather just get a professional to do it all for you, we do have services on creativeindycovers.com where I've trained a team in book design and we can do a really professional job for your book cover. I set up DIY book formatting templates basically because I don't expect every author to want to invest money in every book project. I think it's fine if you have lower expectations and you just want to get a book out there. However, there is a lot of demand and competition for authors who are actually making a living with their books, and they do spend quite a bit of money getting the right cover because they know the cover makes the hugest difference in actual book sales. So we have packages starting at $349 where we will do the cover for you. And then there's also, don't forget, the master package of templates if you want to upgrade and get all of the formatting templates and all of the book cover templates. This is basically training wheels so that you can learn how to do this stuff on your own. But if you get the big package of templates, it'll save a lot of time because you can just pick the ones that you want and kind of just use them as is and put it in your own content. There'll be less time, with experimentation or figuring things out. But we're not quite done yet because I wanted to make a few other videos. The next video is about actually publishing. So I showed you a little bit about what the KDP dashboard looks like and how to upload files to publish them. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about the publishing process, what to do with all your files once you've gotten them designed. And then I have another video just about the book launch or the marketing if you're curious about building an author platform or getting early reviews or advertising, or basically just, once you have this product up for sale, how do you get people to actually buy it and read it? So you can skip over to those videos and learn what to do after your book has launched.